What's up guys? In this video, I'll be talking about a Ryzen 5 3600 build that I'll be putting together for my own personal usage at home, and I'll be giving quick overviews of the parts that I got for this build. First things first, let's talk a little bit about the use case for this PC. Now, I'll be using this build for occasional gaming at 180p as well as for video editing, in addition to, all the usual stuff such as using the Microsoft Office suite and so on. With that in mind, I decided on specs that were comfortably middle range so that I would have a little bit of room in terms of processing power should I need it for the future. Now let's start with the processor. I got this Ryzen 5 3600 from Amazon for $199 US, which translates into approximately 290 Singapore dollars. Now if you're watching this video, you guys probably already know that the Ryzen 3000 series processors are awesome. For the first time since the Athlon 64 days, AMD has proven itself to be a worthy competitor to Intel once more, where its new generation Ryzen CPUs are pretty much trading blows or even outperforming similarly priced Coffee Lake processors from Intel. I'm really looking forward to using this chip in my build, and at the same time I'll also be ditching the original thermal paste that comes with the HSF included in this box, and I'll instead be using the ARCTIC MX4 thermal compound in its place. Moving on to the motherboard, I'll be using the ASRock X570M Pro4, for which I've already done a quick unboxing and overview video, so if you haven't already watched that video, do check it out. As mentioned in the said video, the X570M Pro4 is currently the only micro ATX motherboard with the X570 chipset, and as I didn't want to wait for the entry-level and mid-range 500 series chipsets from AMD to be released, such as, I think it's probably called the B550, I'm not entirely sure about that, but anyway, I decided to bite the bullet and grab this board instead. RAM-wise, I got myself the Kingston HyperX Predator RGB RAMs. Now, the RAMs that I got are DDR4 naturally, and they run at a rated speed of 3200 MHz, and they come in a set of 2 sticks of 8GB to give you a total of 16 gigs. Now, I've personally never used RGB lighting before in my build, so I'm really excited to see how this goes, and to see how the RAMs light up inside of the case. I chose these Kingston RGB RAMs over the usual brands out there such as G-Skill's Trident ZEC and Corsair, simply because I got these cheap through an online fire sale. Storage wise, I'll be using the 512GB variant of the ADATA XPG SX8200 Pro NVMe SSD, and this is actually the first time I'm using a SSD drive in the M2 format, so I'm really looking forward to this. As you can see, ADATA has also included a stick-on metal heatsink. I'm not entirely sure if this is really going to serve its purpose, cause for all intents it's really just a very thin piece of metal, but in any case, still a very nice touch, and I'm looking forward to using this drive. In terms of secondary storage, I'll be reusing a Toshiba DT01 ACA100 1TB hard drive that is currently in my existing PC, which explains why I'm just holding on to the packaging that used to contain it. It's made in November 2017, but it still works, so I'll still be using it for this build. In the graphics card department, I've gotten for myself an ASUS dual Radeon RX 580 04G, powered by an overclocked Radeon RX 580 chip and accompanied by 4GB of GDDR5 memory. Now, this card was purchased for a steal at 179 Singapore dollars during a great super sales promotion campaign that ASUS Singapore had recently. For all you non-Singaporean folks out there, that's approximately $121 US for this card, which I think is a pretty good price in my opinion. Moving on to the power supply, I'll be using a Seasonic M12II-620 Evo. Now, this is a fully modular power supply that complies with the 80 plus bronze specification. I'm actually using this in my existing PC as well. I bought this about a year ago because my previous PSU died. Again, this is still in great working condition. I don't really need a lot of juice for the Ryzen 5 3600 build that I'll be putting together in this video, so hence the decision to reuse this PSU for this build. Onto the chassis I'll be using, I got myself an InWin 301C RGB Micro ATX case in black, which I've already covered in another video on this channel, so do check that out as well if you haven't already done so. To go with the case are 120mm InWin Sirius Loop RGB case fans. Now this comes as a pack of 3. As you can see, there's some serious RGB going on here for this build, and again, seeing as this is actually really the first time I'm dealing with RGB for a PC build, I'm really excited to see the end product. Alright, so that's an overview of the parts to be used in this build. Let's get cracking with the assembly. Right, so in the first steps towards assembly, as you can see, I have already unboxed the AMD Ryzen 5 3600 processor, and I have in front of me the AMD Rave stock heatsink fan, which is included in the package. As you can see, it does include thermal material already applied out of the box. I did mention earlier on in the video that I will be using the ALKtech MX4 thermal compound instead, so this has to come off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use any old card and scrape off the included thermal compound before rounding up with Arctic Clean. So I'll be using bottle number 1 to remove the residual thermal material before finishing off with bottle number 2, which I believe is isopropyl alcohol. Then I'll be ready to use the ALKtech MX4 thermal compound on my processor. So let's get cracking. Now for the next steps, I'll be using the Arctic Clean Thermal Material Remover, and this is partly because there are microscopic pores on the surface of the heatsink fan that cannot be seen, where there's still quite a fair bit of thermal paste and thermal compound going to be stuck inside. So what the Arctic Clean Thermal Material Remover does is that it emulsifies and removes thermal compounds. In other words, it dissolves whatever gunk there is left on the heatsink fan and the processor, and then it allows you to remove it effortlessly. Now after putting the Arctic Clean on the surface of the heatsink fan, we've got to let it stay for about 30 to 60 seconds, where thereafter I'll be wiping it off completely with a paper towel. So let's see how it fares. Okay, so 30 seconds are up. Let's have a look at the efficacy of the Arctic Clean Thermal Material Remover. I'm just going to wipe it off here, like so. And there you have it, as good as new. Now the final step will be to purify the contact surface with bottle number 2, which I believe is isopropyl alcohol. So let's get started. And then prepare a paper towel. Just give it a bit of a dab and a wipe and a rub down. And there you have it. The heatsink fan surface is ready for contact with the processor and MX4. Alright, and the processor is now ready for the application of MX4 thermal compound. Okay, now that we've got the processor and RAMs installed on the board, the next thing to do really is to make sure that none of these components are dead on arrival. So as you can see, I've set up a test bench of sorts. Now when I say test bench, I really just mean motherboard on top of the box. That's it. But anyway, in any case, I have here a test graphics card. That's a Radeon 6450, HD 6450. I've got a spare power supply, the Seasonic M12II Evo 520W. It's all hooked up and ready to go, and let's see if this baby will post. We're gonna do the old short the power leads trick to power on the board. Fingers crossed. I really hope this actually works and that there's no faulty components. Here goes nothing. And there's nothing. Oh wait, I forgot to switch on the power supply, so yeah. Okay, test number 2. It works! Or does it not? It's spinning, and the RAMs spring to life. It boots, it posts! Fantastic! And great, it works! So let's see here. We've got the Ryzen 5 3600 processor. We've got 16 gigs of RAM. Fantastic, it looks like the parts are working great. So on to the next part of the video, putting it all together. Here it is, the completed Ryzen 5 3600 build. Taking a look over at the right hand side of the PC, you'll see that I've pretty much stuffed all the cables into this channel here, which has proven to be very useful in terms of cable management. It looks a bit of a mess, but once you go over to the other side, the exposed side that can be seen through the tempered glass panel, you'll see that the design and layout of the case has pretty much allowed me to create a very clean looking build with most of the cables hidden through this channel, which is covered by this plastic shroud here. And yeah, you can see I've installed the 3 InWin Sirius loop RGB fans. The Radeon RX 580 card from ASUS has been installed as well, as is the case for the hard disk. Now I think all that really remains is to fire this baby up and see how it looks. Okay, so I've got the PC hooked up to the mains. Here goes nothing. Wow. Let's have a closer look at the front RGB LEDs of the InWin 301C case. Now I think the video quality isn't going to do it any justice, but by golly, the RGB lighting effect looks stunning. Look at that, it's changing in color already. I really like how there's this whole RGB lighting effect around the ports, the USB ports and the audio ports, so it's really wow. Okay, let's have a look at the inside of the PC. Will you look at that? it looks really great, and I'm really digging how the InWin Sirius loop RGB fans have this like ring of RGB lighting around the blades. It adds a lot of character to the case, I must say. Yeah, I think on the whole it's looking really good. The only issue that I can see is that it looks like the Kingston RAMs are not really in sync in terms of the RGB colors, but I think this is something that after I've installed Windows 10 and installed the ASRock Polychrome RGB software, that's something that I can solve easily by changing a couple of settings. But yeah, in any case, it looks like this Ryzen 5 3600 build is a great success. Okay, to round up this video, I've had the ALKtech Ryzen 5 3600 build running for about more than 2 weeks now, and I wanted to share some additional thoughts and observations on the build thus far. First things first, the X570M Pro4 board, which had unfortunately several issues going against it. Initially, after installing Windows 10, I realized that the OS was unable to detect any semblance of the onboard Intel LAN at all. Thinking it could have been, disabled within the BIOS for some odd reason, I then went into the BIOS to look for an option to enable onboard LAN, but could find no such option at all. By then, I was thinking to myself, oh great, the board that I had probably had a dead LAN chip on board. As a last-ditched attempt, I decided to reset the CMOS for the board, so I unplugged the PC from the mains, removed the CMOS battery, and let the PC sit for a bit before replacing the battery and plugging it back into the mains again. Who would have known that the good old reset CMOS battery trick would solve the issue? Windows 10 was now able to detect the onboard Intel LAN without any further issues. Very odd. Moving on to the next issue with the X570M Pro4, I suspect that the chipset fan is not of the greatest quality. First and foremost, it gets noisy at times, especially upon powering up the PC, where it makes a sort of papery noise that you get when the fan is wearing out or hitting something when it's spinning, and the noise can even be heard when the side panel is on. The noise does go away after the PC has been on for a while, so I'm not sure if the one that I got with this board is a dud, but do keep a lookout for fan issues should you choose to get this board for your build. Another issue that I'd like to highlight is with regard to the ASRock Polychrome RGB software, where I found the interface a little laggy at times and not very intuitive as well. I also had issues syncing the RGB effects for the Kingston RGB RAMs with the case fans as well as the front fascia RGB LEDs, where the only effect that worked was static colors, which was kind of disappointing. No rainbow effects, breathing effects, just a plain old static color. As a result of this, as you can see, I decided to just sync the front fascia RGB with the case fans, and I left the RAMs on the color cycle mode. Granted, RGB sync across components can be a little bit of a hit and miss at times, but that being said, I do hope that in subsequent versions of the Polychrome software, ASRock would be able to improve component compatibility and its interface somewhat. Those issues aside, which in my opinion are not huge deal breakers, especially now that they are sort of out of the way, I'm really pleased with the performance of the PC thus far. Applications such as Photoshop and video editing software now load and process files much faster, and I just tried playing Battlefield 1 at 180p on ultra settings and it was a buttery smooth experience. Prior to this PC, I was using one that was powered by a paltry Intel Core i3-4130 dual-core processor from the Haswell era, and you can already imagine the performance gains that I've gotten from this new setup. For the fun of it, on the screen are some results of the Cinebench R20 and 7-zip benchmarks that I ran on my old and new PCs. Needless to say, the Ryzen 5 3600 setup absolutely trashes the i3-4130's performance. Alright, that wraps up the ALKtech Ryzen 5 3600 build video. On the whole, I really like this PC and I'm looking forward to using it in the coming months and maybe even years. So with that, do remember to like the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel as well. I hope to see you guys again soon for the next video. Cheers!